られない、でも諦めない、木箱拳握りしめて、この運命と明日の記憶、きつく抱いて守るよ。
Jiro heard a car door slam outside the apartment just as the repair crew was cleaning up. The door someone had tried to break through was now safely welded shut from both sides. It might not keep a determined vampire from entering, but it wouldn't make it easy on them either.
Thank you very much for your help.
Just doing my job.
A taxicab could be seen through the main door as the workman opened it to leave.
Looks like you had some guests.
That's strange. I wasn't expecting anyone.
Well, I need to head to another job. Good luck.
The open door swept in the smell of ginger and oranges, Mimiko's scent. Jiro blinked a few times in confusion. The brunette was decidedly early. He went swiftly to the door before she could reach it from the other side, the taxi driving away as he reached the opening.
Mimiko, you're home early. Is everything alright?
His voice was a bit tight as he looked at her from top to bottom, trying to find anything visibly wrong. She had shadows under her eyes, he noted, and she was walking slower than usual. He took the last few steps towards her, trying not to look too concerned. She looked up, her eyes opening wide. She blinked a few times to clear her tangled thoughts.
I'm fine. Everything's fine. I'm just tired.
He stepped back to let her inside the building.
Long day?
You could say that.
She rubbed out her temples and tried to stumble up the steps at the same time. Jiro reached out a steadying hand for her, which she took without thinking.
Where's Kotaro?
He's still at Sei's house. I believe they decided to make it a sleepover.
Oh.
She let go of his hand as they reached the top of the stairs, shutting the door to close out the lower level. She kicked off her shoes and headed for the kitchen. Jiro followed after her, ready if she should need his steadying hand again.
Jiro, who are those people I saw leaving just now?
Oh, that? There was a leak downstairs. I had them repair it. There's no need to worry. It was a simple repair job.
I'm more worried about what to make for dinner. Maybe something light?
She nodded absently as she searched in the cupboard for something to snack on. She settled on a box of graham crackers, heading to the fridge for some milk.
Thirsty, Jiro?
Not at the moment.
Jiro smiled, wondering if she'd realized what she'd just asked him. She quickly closed the fridge, milk in hand, her back to him as her cheeks flamed.
You know what I meant!
Of course, Mimiko. But you left yourself wide open for that one.
His eyes narrowed as he caught the shadows under her eyes once more as she turned around and sat at the table, dipping her crackers into her milk-filled cup and eating them slowly.
Are you sure you're all right?
Aside from a lovely bruise from this morning.
Mimiko.
She tried to distract him from the topic as quickly as possible, knowing he could be quite adamant about treating her like fragile glass should she even accidentally scrape her palms.
Janai mentioned that there was the possibility of some restlessness among the Blackbloods. He didn't use those exact words, but that's what he meant.
Did he give a reason?
No, just a general warning that we might be called in to help mediate if something comes up. Why?
No reason. I just hadn't heard anything about it.
She waved a milk-sodden cracker, spilling drops of milk on the table, glad that he had taken the bait and wasn't asking her any more questions about her overall condition.
It's not like he'd give us any details unless we're called in anyway.
You're probably right.
He wondered if Janai had mentioned it to the compromisers because word had reached his ears of a vampire trying to break into their apartment, but dismissed the idea. Though it was possible, it was unlikely. Mimiko was draining the last bit of her milk when he looked up again, the shadows playing across her face, reminding him of other matters.
You mentioned something earlier about a bruise?
She stood, heading to the cupboard again, buying time before she answered. The crackers hadn't been enough either.
It's fine. I just bumped into the table this morning. No big deal.
Jiro gave her a doubtful glance. He was all too aware of her tendency to downplay any injury.
Mimiko.
It's nothing, I promise.
She resisted the urge to scowl as she reached for something on a higher shelf.
Now where did that box of crackers go? It was here yesterday. There it is, on the top shelf. Ugh.
She wasn't quite tall enough without doing something to give her a slight boost to reach the box, even going on her tiptoes. Grumbling under her breath, she jumped to give her the extra few inches she needed to reach the box in question, not bothering to ask the much taller Jiro to get it down for her. A loud thump announced her knee hitting into the countertop, followed by a low outcry of pain. No more than a half-second later, Jiro was by her side, hands around her waist to keep her from doing any further damage by banging into something else or falling backwards and cracking her skull. Mimiko was taken by surprise, her hands still raised as if to reach for the box that seemed to be staring back at her tauntingly. Her knee stung, and she had to blink a few times to be sure that no tears had come because of it. She grit her teeth against the pain, just as she found herself being turned around and placed on top of the counter.
What? Jiro? Don't set me on the counter! I'm not a little kid!
Jiro ignored her protests as he gently pushed her skirt up to rest just above her knee and no further. The deep bruise stood out against her pale skin. He frowned.
Mimiko, what have you been doing to yourself?
Does my knee really look that bad? I hardly felt it.
He looked up at her with an expression she could not read.
Mimiko, it's turning black and blue.
Huh? It is?
She bent slightly to look for herself.
Must I look after you every waking moment?
Mimiko put her hands on her hips.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
He ignored her. Instead, he began to gently probe at the discolored skin, noticing when she winced.
Hey, you don't need to keep touching it.
It hurts more than you're willing to admit, doesn't it?
It's really not that bad.
She tried to slide off the countertop, but he stopped her.
Don't move yet. You're not ready to stand.
Jiro, it's just a bruise. It will heal.
It'll heal quicker if you put some ice on it. Now stay here.
He turned to the fridge, opening the freezer compartment to find some ice.
Yes, Mother.
I heard that.
He removed an ice tray, ignoring Mimiko as she rolled her eyes at him. She made no further comment as he filled and brought over a bag, which he wrapped in a dish towel to keep from being too cold against her skin.
There. Put this on your knee.
She took the offering with a sigh, placing it on her knee.
You know, I feel kind of silly sitting on the counter. It's not exactly sanitary.
Then I'll have to move you somewhere a little more appropriate.
Before she could offer a protest, he had her in his arms and was carrying her to the main living area where he set her on the low couch. He hoped she wouldn't find something to protest about this new location.
Hey, Jiro! Could you at least warn me before you pick me up?
She did protest, but the deed was already done. Jiro eyed her critically.
Do you plan on having this happen again, Mimiko?
That's not the point. A girl does like to have some warning.
He wasn't sure if he'd ever completely understand her. One moment he thought he had a good grasp on her personality and ways of thinking. The next, he was thrown for another loop. If nothing else, humans were very complex creatures. And women more especially, he decided.
My most sincere apologies.
He bowed. Seeing him in this state, she couldn't stay mad at him. After all, he was only doing what he thought was best, even if it was sometimes unnecessary.
Ugh, just no more drama tonight, okay?
Of course.
He agreed, though he silently vowed to keep an eye on her that night as much as possible.